Hey everybody, welcome. Hello. Welcome to the Just in Time Cafe. I'm Elizabeth Swan, co-founder of the Just in Time Cafe, and I'll be your moderator today. And if you've never been to the cafe before, you are in for a big treat. I am so psyched about today's webinar, Personal Hoshin Planning, Why Leave Your Future to Luck, with Bob Wallner. And Bob Wallner is a seasoned professional with 30 years in the manufacturing industry. His journey is in continuous improvement, began in 2006 with training in the theory of constraints. Bob's dedication earned him the Shingo Lean Bronze certification. Very impressed. The Lean Six Sigma Black Belt, and a master's in lean manufacturing from Kettering University. So right now he is the site lean leader at GKN Aerospace, and Bob leverages his expertise to drive impactful improvement initiatives. His notable successes and personal attributes, such as a relentless pursuit of excellence, inspire industry peers and conference attendees alike. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so psyched to have you. I met Bob. We were both on the board, the Eastern board for AME, um, Association for Manufacturing Excellence. And uh, uh, Bob did a really interesting thing with my book. I gave a presentation, and Bob had taken, it has 50 chapters, and he turned the chapters into an Excel tool where he could randomize which chapter he was going to work on for the week. So I already saw that Bob sort of takes things and works his own magic with them. So I was quite excited when he told me he had his own personal Hoshin planning. So that's what we're getting into today. Before we get into, let's see, few housekeeping items for today. So you can ask questions anytime by putting them into the chat. Bob's session is going to be kind of questions at the end, but there's stuff I might know and be able to answer in the meantime. And then this session will be available for free on our website. Usually we get them out by the Monday after. And so first activity is, like what you're doing, which is sharing where you're from. And let's see, we've got Erin in Seattle, welcome. Laura in Paris, Texas, Paris, Tennessee. Sorry, I got that wrong. I just had a crossword where it said, where is there an Eiffel Tower with a cowboy hat on it? And that was Paris, Texas. But Paris, Tennessee is different. We've got Charles in Hampstead, North Carolina, welcome. Russell in Wisconsin. Grace, welcome. Grace in Corvallis. Lynn, great to have you from Fairfield, Iowa, awesome. Jose, Arizona. Hector from San Diego. Rachel, you are in Hartford, Vermont. Very cool. And Olga, welcome, Olga. Olga has been a guest at the cafe in Redwood City. Nancy in Aberdeen, South Dakota. Not bad. Ray, welcome from Monument, Colorado. And Scott, hi back to you from Orange County. So fabulous spread. Some names I know, some new names. So kind of psyched for the group we have here today. So Bob, let me give them a little taste of what's happening right now. So at the cafe right now, our latest podcast was with Paul Critchley. And Paul is Paul and Bob are involved in putting on the first ever New England Lean Summit. So if you guys, let's see, Rachel, you're in Vermont, you could come on down. So we encourage you. I'll be keynoting. Bob has a session there, and it's going to be very interactive. I think there's a DJ coming. And Bob will give you a little more info at the end of this presentation on it. But the webinars always review an app and also do some Q&A, a hot topic. So you can check that out. I put the link in the chat. And the other thing I wanted you to know was the next webinar we're having is with Jerry Wright, who just has a new bestseller out about what is his bestseller called? Let me go look. What is it called? It's kind of got the same title here, but it is, shoot, where is the book? The
The
Insanity
Insanity
Trap.
Trap.
Yeah, that's right. So what your MRP consultant won't tell you. Thanks, Bob. You're with it. So it's this is great. He's got uh all this experience of figuring out why materials resource planning doesn't work for people and what to do instead, which involves Kanbans and some demand-driven MRP. So he's going to give us a primer, and you could win one of his books for free. So don't miss that. Oh, well, like I guess I should give you the link to that too. All right. So if you want to register for the next webinar with Jerry Wright, and then the last thing is I'll give you a link to the New England Lean Summit. And like I said, Bob's going to give us a little more of a sense of it because he's been planning. Okay. So with that, I would love to hand the reins over to you. Go, Bob.
Thank you very much. And wow, all over the country. I haven't been to some of these states that you mentioned, and very, very exciting. Um, so what I want to talk to you guys all about today and get involvement in, and I do apologize if you hear a dog in the background. I am working from home today, and my dog doesn't realize that there is quiet time. Um, is personal Hoshin and why leave your luck to the future? So I'm going to tell this kind of in the story format of how it happened for me. A little bit different than maybe some of the other webinars you've been part of. Uh, Elizabeth and I talked. If there's questions coming up, she's kind of been through this already. She'll definitely be able to either stop me or have you hang on. But for this first part, really, I want to talk about the introduction, my introduction, and then how I got to a burning platform and felt empty. So, little bit about me. Some of it was covered. 32 years in manufacturing, last 18 of which has been in continuous improvement role of one sort or another. Um, the real me, though, married for 15 years, father of two, stepfather of two, uh, or grandfather of two. I am a self-assessed and self-acclaimed lean geek. Also, I am a New England Patriots fan. Sorry for all those years of Mr. Brady, but I'm really not. I'm also a lover of the White Mountains of New Hampshire, hiking, theater, concerts, and just a small fun fact, part of my Hoshin long-term strategy is for my 60th birthday, I want to be hiking the Appalachian Trail, which is 2,200 miles up and down the eastern seaboard. So again, I live this method that I've curated. My aim for the workshop really is to share a method for determining what the most important items are that you could be working on, and give you tools or ideas of how you can become well informed in your decisions. And in the past, this is a change for me. In the past would have been how many people could I reach at an inch deep. I really look at success as if I could reach one person a mile deep, uh, and have them take control of their lives and their outcomes rather than wishing for things to happen, I would consider a success. I will be sharing some personal stories with you. I've tried to really balance what is a shared example and too much information, and I hope I've done a good job of that. So there might be some X's or clouds or blocks, but for the most part, what you're going to be seeing is really what I do and how I manage personal Hoshin in my life. So to get started, the earliest seeds of this really started with a book by Pascal Dennis, going back to now 2014. A good friend and coworker of mine had read this, and after work, like we often did, we'd go to the local watering hole, and there might been one or two liquid refreshments involved, but we started complaining that our organization had no real true north focus and that we really needed to start trying to drive this. So we approached our boss, the general manager of this plant, and told him that we needed to implement Hoshin Conry immediately. And his one word was, "Wow." Well, we didn't have a good answer because we read a book. I've read a book about tennis. I'm definitely not going to be taking on any of the top tennis stars anytime soon, but we went back to our desks and came up with a 20 plus page PowerPoint slide full of various tools and examples from the text. And we were politely told, not now. Um, we really could not tell tell him what the advantages would be. We were only able to share with him the artifacts and the stories that we had read. Um, we were kind of in that same quagmire that new graduates are in. We wanted to try and experiment with something new, but we needed to be hired before we could try. So it was just one of those quagmires. So it lay dormant for 2 years. Um, and there was a small spark that occurred before I even had a burning platform, which was from on one of Mark Graban's podcasts. He had a young engineer named Jess Orr, and I remember this clearly, and I remember the podcast, but I cannot remember what the session was. But he talks about using an A3 versus doing um, yearly annual resolutions. And that little spark simmered and just kind of sat burning. If anybody wants to know that, what that one is, I can definitely try to look for it, dig it up. I have a rough idea of when that might have been. Um, but it was certainly just a little spark from a young up and coming engineer that spurred things for me. Well, the burning platform happened, and it happened when you're least expecting it. I got that old-fashioned pink slip, and I don't remember what they told me, whether it's being let go, we're giving you the option to be successful elsewhere, your department's being downsized, we're going in a different direction. But for those of you who know the books of Dr. Spencer Johnson, someone moved my cheese. And in April of 2016, there was a major leadership challenge. My mentor, my personal leader, was gone, left on Friday. I came in Monday and was handed that, uh, let's go be successful somewhere else. That drove arrogance. I mean, I was going to go tell them I was going to have a job within 2 weeks. I mean, here I am. I'm a black belt. I'm a super smart guy. I've driven all these super improvements. I know all this stuff. And then time went on, and that arrogance started to come into confusion a little bit. And, I'm applying for these jobs that I should be more than qualified for. Why am I not being considered? What's happening here? And August, right near the end of my severance, where my severance was starting to run out, my wife kicked me out of the house and said, "You're mopey, get out." And I went for a hike up into my happy spot, which is the White Mountains of New Hampshire. And I had that aha moment. Now, that picture you see of me in the corner was literally the first picture I'd had of myself since. And that smile is a genuine smile because I think this was the hike that I actually had that aha moment. Um, and I was just excited, and I think I floated to the top of the rest of my hike. So that aha moment, your brain, when you're not trying to think, your brain really does a good job of unpacking things. And I really wasn't trying to think. I was trying to get out of myself. But it all of a sudden occurred to me, and I didn't have the math in front of me at the time, but how many hours per year do we have on this earth? Um, and how many of those hours had I been practicing on how to be better at my job, more efficient, practicing how to be more efficient, more time utilization? But also in the same token, how many of those hours had I spent trying to understand whether I was even doing the right things? And the answer to that really was zero. So I did, and this is a non-judgment zone. If this looks familiar to you, please don't think that I'm judging. Um, but in that sitting down after that, in that 8,700 hours of time in a year, a third of it was spent sleeping, a third of it was roughly work and commuting. 20% of that, over 20%, was watching TV, social media, and then another small portion was chores. That left me 13, almost 14 hours a week to do the really important personal stuff. So I really felt at that point my life wasn't I wasn't leading my life. My life was leading me, that I wasn't doing the best I could at being me, that I was taking what came. It also got me to question, what do I want to be when I grow up? I was, 40-ish at the time. I'd have to do the math. What do I want to be when I grow up? Do I want to continue in the CI role? Do I want to do something different? Do I want to donate my brain to science? I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I had done all kinds of great things through the previous years. I mean, looking at the list, this is just a partial list of things I started to do from, you know, dedicating 2 hours a day of audio learning. And I gave up television with the exception of the New England Patriots, sometimes the Bruins. But for the most part, I cut back on my television. I joined a gym. I got my black belt. I got that bronze certification. Um, Returned to going to church. Created a website. Started keeping track of my learning and really started to practice personal Kanban. The one thing that was really missing was there was no why was I doing this? There was no overarching goal I was working to. These were all just things that I had read that were the best practices or things that you can do to get yourself better. Um, Never really thought LSS black belt. Well, I think my head was at this should earn me more money. It wasn't how can I help people solve problems and how can I really understand deeply problems. So there was no central whys that really worked around all these improvements. And I found myself in that situation of I was always creating New Year's resolutions that were true lagging indicators. So they weren't actions, they were results. I'm going to lose 50 pounds this year. I'm going to get a 10% increase in my pay. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. They were all those lagging indicators. But as soon as a challenge arose, I was this guy. I was out there hitting down the problems as they came up instead of knowing which problems I needed to attack. And it's funny, I've used this also, this cat gifts I probably owe a whole lot of money to. I've used this in internal trainings for my companies as well because it's really what companies do, right? You want to work on the right things, but as soon as a problem comes up, no matter how big or small, that becomes the hottest thing you gotta try to push back down. Uh, so it was a learning experience for me, even on the going from resolutions to a new way of thinking, not just on a personal level, but on a professional level as well. So kind of moving on and really looking, I took some step back and I really started to look at what the system needed to look like or what I wanted to do. I don't even think I had really completely understood that I wanted to create a system. And I definitely never created anything I ever wanted to share. This was a me thing. So, full disclosure here, nothing I talk about is new. This is somewhere out there. I'm sure Just in Time Cafe has got podcasts that touch on everything I talk about here. The system is put together. It works for me. It's something that's developed and changed for me. Um, it's not something that I set out to say, okay, I'm going to create something and it's going to be the next lean. It's going to be lean 2.0 or something. It's what worked for me. The tools and I'm going to show you some of the tools I use. But they change often. I have experimented with so many different kinds of apps and so many different kinds of tools, from the simple to the most complex, and they change frequently. But the system is the one thing that has never changed. And finally, what I'm going to go through here, I'm really simplifying it a little bit, but it's not easy. It is very, very, very hard. And even after doing this since 2016 and improving it, so now going on 8 years of really doing this practice, every day is hard, and it's hard to sustain. So um, I don't want, and I hope I don't sound like at any point like this is the easiest thing, do this and all your problems are solved. So what is personal Hoshin to me? I had three book mentors that I really took into consideration. That getting the right things done by Pascal Dennis. Incredibly simple methods and tools, and he talks about what's the most important things specifically geared to businesses. How do you plan and how do you execute? Uh, Incredible book. The second one was really was Dr. Deming and his new economics, and specifically the system of profound knowledge, the understanding of what a system is, and that there's inherent variation. No matter what you do within that system, you're going to have that variation. Um, and then the third book is probably a lesser known one from quite a few people, but to me was probably the single most powerful. Uh, is by a former Toyota employee, Matthew E. May, who has, if you don't know who Matthew E. May is, I would definitely encourage you to look him up on the internet. He is an amazing uh, person. He was a former Toyota person, and he, in this small fable that takes not much more than an hour to read, teaches the value on a personal level of observation, goal alignment, continuous improvement, and reflection. And it's just a nice little fable. It's like those, for those of you who've read Who Moves My Cheese, this one though is probably hits home to a lot of people, and probably hit home to me because the lead character in this was out of work um, unexpectedly. So these three these three books really were the founding principles that I was trying to build on. And what I ended up finding out that I kind of created or put together, or pieced together, was an understanding of a system that could help me know what to do, how to do it, and how I'm doing at it. Didn't quite know what it was yet, but I had the foundation built for the house. So the next step was really building the house and understanding what the house looks like. And what do I need to, what were my steps at developing this personal Hoshin? So I'm going to go through how, without a lot of detail, but how I came upon all the steps I did to get where I was at. So what do I need to work on and why? First thing I did when when I had that aha moment, I had a weekend away. It was just me. I was excited. In a little cabin, no internet. It was a great thing. I found the local Walmart and went and got those things we lean people love: post-it notes, and more post-it notes. Um, and some 11 by 17 paper. I didn't know what I was going to do with it yet, but I got all these things, and going starting to put the pieces together. The first thing I really needed to understand is, what should I be working on? And from my readings, I had a good understanding. I needed a good vision. Now, I try whenever possible, because everything we talk, everything in the lean world seems to revolve around Toyota. Yes, Toyota is super. They've got some of the best information, but I'll tell you what, there's other companies maybe who aren't the lean gurus that Toyota are, but really provide some amazing information out there. So when I started looking at who had some good visions of where they wanted to be, um, for anybody who knows, Richard Sheridan from, or knows of Richard Sheridan from Joy Incorporated, and I think he's got the Joyous CEO or something. He is an amazing, amazing CEO who, in his own way, his own vision says our processes, our culture, and our work ethic, they all aim to a single goal, joy. Wow, that is an incredible vision. The other one that I really liked after looking at a bunch of these was the ASPCA. And I always thought of these people as those sad commercials that you see with the dogs in cages. But really, when I dug into their vision is a humane community in which all animals are treated with respect and kindness. Now, we have a hard time as humans respecting each other with respect and kindness or treating each other with respect and kindness. Here's a group whose vision is people are going to respect their pets or animals with that same respect and kindness. So, taking those kind of examples, I really started to think about what are the important things for me? And that's where my good friend Sticky Notes came up. I really took a wall in this little ratty cheap hotel and I just started playing with the post-it notes like I would at work. I said, what are all the things that are important to me? Then I started ranking them. I'm like, okay, these are the most important. And then I did the good old affinity diagram. Wasn't planning on doing it, but it turned out that way, grouping those things. And what I found is there was five things that were really critical to me. Personal health, the quality of my family and friend relationships, spiritual relationships, not just religious, but also spiritual relationships with myself, personal ambitions, professional ambitions. So what were my goals professionally? What did I aspire to professionally? And then financial stability, not putting a dollar number on anything, but just financial stability, the ability to live and not have to consider money as the big uh, bottleneck. What I ended up coming up with, and this honestly is Rev 2. Rev 1 was a little bit different than this, but this is so my first initial one, because I've done this in the past, was a little bit different. But my current one is that I want to live a life that enriches both myself, so that would be my health, my spiritual, and my financial, and those whom I touch. So those would be my relationships and my professional work. So very simple but very meaningful. Uh, it's not a lot of words, but it's the life I try to live now. And when I forget about it, I have it on my wall in my office. I have it in notebooks. I have it on my Kindle. Everywhere I go to, I can see that right in front of me. Step two, now that I had kind of a direction, and again, at the time it was a little bit different, but these really haven't changed, was to create my long-term goals. And I started with 3-year goals. I do 5-year on this last round. Um, what are those critical things, the health, the friendships of family, the spiritual relationships, the professional ambitions, and financial stability? Where do I want to be when all said and done? Now, lean traditionalists are going to probably kick me in the pants and say this is wrong. I took an 11 by 17 and I folded it into quarters. And for my strategic thinking, again, I didn't plan on this being any kind of formal A3. I just said, where do I want to be with those goals in 5 years? And where am I now? What do I need to do? How will I get there? And how will I know when I get there? How am I going to measure it? With that, as things have progressed and I've taken it from a hotel room with no internet service back to my office, I was able to start thinking about what do I want my strategic A3 to look like? So what do I want an 11 by 17 that lays out my entire plan? And what I have is I have my goals. In this case, it's a 5-year goals. I have the current state. This is really my current rationale, what is really the things that updated each year, where I'm at, and make this relevant still? What are some of those rationales that I need to get to the for that 2026 in this case goal? And then what are those major achievables, those major milestones, those major uh, metrics that I'm going to need to achieve to get there? So this really is less of a living document for me. I do review annually the one thing, the current life conditions, because those change and those can change fast. Good example in 2023, I had a stroke. That kind of threw a lot of my plans into turmoil and really upset my wife. It really, for a period of several months, she was stressed, she was anxious, and it was working against a healthy family relationship. And uh, so things come up. But what was that current rationale? If I look here at the end of 22, if I looked at 2022, I had no plan in there that I was going to have to deal with that. So that was one of those cat whack-a-moles that came up. That one happened to be a big one that was a big impact item that I had to really reevaluate things. The next step for me really was to set a tactical direction because this big plan without a way to get there doesn't help a whole lot. You've now got a good guide of where you want to be, but without that straight line of, okay, if I have to do this year to get here in 5 years, you're going to tend to you might make decisions that are counterproductive to your long term. Like maybe you need money for something and you decide you're going to cash in your 401k. That's a short-term problem in long-term implications. So really looking at what is critically important to me, capturing my current challenges. So understanding what my current challenges are to get there. Why is this plan important to me? Establishing this year's goals and success metrics, determining what needs to be done. So what are these things that need to be done? And then here's a change, considering creating your daily leading indicators, things you can do that maybe aren't measurable, but are going to lead you to those 3 to 5 goals that you want to achieve. Again, any lean zealots, forgive me. I took the 11 by 17 again, folded it into quarters. Where do I want to be this year? So I already had the idea of where I want to be in 5 years. Where do I want to be this year? What is my current state? Why am I prioritizing one thing over another? And how will I get there? How will I do it? That led me, again, guy who likes spreadsheets and loves to play with spreadsheets, into 1 year deployment plan. And this is pretty close to what my actual deployment plan looks like. And um, so I have my 1 year vision. What do I want to be? Where was I with my baseline? Where do I want to be this year? And then at the end of this year, I'm going to, where am I actually? And did I hit or miss? What's my current state? So in this case, I like some positive things. Here's some positive things. I told you about the stroke. By the end of the year, my wife was saying that she was feeling better about herself, that she was feeling more confident that this was in the rearview mirror and now taken care of. What were some negative things? And there are negatives. Um, I have my improvement metrics, which I'm going to show you where that comes, where I put that in place. That's just really so I can measure month over month. And tactically, how am I going to achieve that? Now, I really have come up with, and I try to come up with at least a major goal for each one of the important things. And then I might have minor goals within those too. So, for example, for my health, for my weight, I want to lose wherever the baseline was minus 20%. But I also want these other goals, I want to do an overnight hike. I want two size smaller pants. And I want to make sure my blood pressure remains medicated. So I've set these goals up. Now, the one goal I know that this top goal will help drive these. I know that by doing this, I'm going to have improved chances of hitting these. So then I follow up, uh, and I have some follow up decisions I want to make. Do I things that I want to maybe unresolved from the previous year that I want to make sure that I follow up on. This is the game changer now. This is the part that's the hardest. What I've talked about so far is really the easy part. This really becomes the hard part. The action and reflection section. Um, Creating a kata of daily reflection or Hansei, but for those of you who aren't familiar with kata, it's simply just that daily practice. It's that daily, I guess practice is the best way of saying it, and you stick to it every day. And I had to create this habit of daily reflection. And for people who love tools, just get, get ready. So I've used a bunch of different tools throughout my time trying to measure things. Um, there's two current tools I really like using. First one, and I have the information at the end of this is a habit tracker. And if you notice the habits that I'm looking up here, they're all lagging indicators. Measure weight. I just step on the scale. It doesn't matter if it's gone up or down. It does matter if it goes up and down, but the fact that stepping on the scale is just that habit of getting on the scale gives me that measure point. Measure my sleep. The new smartwatches are absolutely amazing, and I'm going to share in a minute how that can help me. I used to say I want to run for 20 minutes or I want to do this, I want to do upper body workout or something. Just get to the gym. If I get to the gym and I know I'm going to do something, I may not have the best workout of my life. I may not have the worst. I got to the gym. So I measure and I track these over time. And this application is one that I happen to like. And then at the end of the day, I used to do this on paper and it was really hard to total up and understand. Uh, I have this little grid journal and I asked myself three questions. Well, technically four. What went well today? So at the end of the day, what can I hang my hat on and say this was good? What didn't go well? What do I need what there's things that go wrong every day. What didn't go well? There's always something in there. I had a bad experience with an employee. I had this, I had that. What can I do differently tomorrow? Probably the key question. What is there that you can do differently to make this either continue what went well or help adjust what didn't go well? And then here, what's my current mood? How am I personally feeling after doing this? So this kata of reflection is something I do every day. And again, most of these are my leading indicators. And measuring my weight, is it going to help me lose weight? Probably not. Um, you know, I have one in here logging my food. Is logging my food? No, just logging it won't do anything, but understanding the habits it's driving is really what I uh, the understanding that you can really get from this. You're also looking for patterns when you're doing your reflections. So I'm going to share, these are personal patterns that have come up this year that fueling up my car has slowed my weight loss progress. So if you're not from the Northeast, you may not know this, but a lot of the fueling stations have Dunkin' Donuts. What goes better with a coffee than a nice old, donut to go right along with that? Now I do commute quite a ways, so I end up fueling up my car 3 times a week. So I started off going with, oh, I'll just go in and get myself a coffee. Well, now I'm going to go and, it goes good with that coffee. I think I'll just get that donut. One donut won't kill me. And over the course of doing this, I was able to determine that I wasn't my weight on was just kind of holding steady and I was getting excess calories and I hadn't really thought of that. Um, Talk about the smartwatch. I realized that I was waking up feeling tired and my goal was always to get 6 hours a night of sleep, asleep at night. Well, by using the watch statistics, I was able to find out that I don't actually fall into deep sleep until I've been in bed with my eyes closed and technically asleep for 60 minutes after all the lights are shut off. I thought I was doing a great thing because, I go into bed and my wife, God bless her, she's a night owl. She stays up and watches TV. And I was going to bed at, 8 o'clock and plopping my Kindle with a book right in front of me. And, you know, great. Um, so I was shocked to find out that I was only getting like 5 hours sleep a night, according to my watch, through sleep. Um, and a current struggle I'm working on right now is, and more on the weekends, is meeting and achieving my leading indicators than I do during the week. I have my grandkids here occasionally. I have a lot of things that go on the weekends that I'm not able to hit my leading indicators quite as readily. So as I've started to see these patterns arise, I've been able to put small Kaizen in place to really help improve. So I started off Kaizen one, just don't go into Dunkin' Donuts. Well, that didn't work. That worked for about the first week. And then that stopped. I could go to a different gas station. uh, Good. The next closest one's about a mile away and it's farther away from the highway and it's kind of out of my way. Not super convenient. Then I got to one earlier this year that really worked. What if I were to get my fuel on the way home instead of on the way to work? What if I just got on the highway and didn't stop at the gas station to fuel up in the morning? I did it on the way home. That one worked because I now Bunks was either closed or I didn't want a coffee, and a coffee and a donut just doesn't sound good, right before lunch, before supper. Now, this pattern I saw, and I'm still playing around with this one a little bit, but I don't go into peak sleep until 60 minutes after all the lights shut off. Well, I started playing with the settings on my Kindle because I still like I get into bed and I enjoy reading right before bed. It helps kind of clear my mind. And I noticed that they had these things called nightlight mode. And I've been able to reduce that 60 minutes down to 30 minutes. I'd ultimately like to get that to zero, but that nightlight mode has, according to the metrics that I'm using, measuring my sleep time, been cut in half, the time it takes me to fall asleep. Now I'm working on some of the struggles. I'm experimenting, so I'm practicing on certain things. Getting to the gym on the weekend is hard for me. 101 different reasons. I'm busy. I've got the grandkids. I don't like the people that are there. The gym opens late. Whatever it is, the equipment's busier. Um, so I started saying, what if I were to walk the dog as my form of weekend exercise? And I could also incorporate that as active meditation. So instead of when I meditate, I just listen to my breath and I count, listen to the noise my breath makes. Now I'm just listening to my footsteps. So I've started to experiment with that. Um, I'm taking naps or chores during those peak snacky times between lunch and supper. So usually I'm get up in the morning, do all my chores, and I can have my afternoon. Well, what if I took some of those chores and move those into the afternoon a little bit when I'm more apt to sit and want a snack? And now I had mentioned I have my grandkids over once a month for a weekend. Well, what I found was that they're here, but we're not together, that they're busy watching they love YouTube on TV and different things. So we've created 80s Saturdays morning. Now, anybody who's over the age of, I would say 45, you probably know what the 80s Saturday morning is, and it is complete with Schoolhouse Rock breaks. So those cartoons, we find those cartoons that were from the 80s. We get the bowl of the really sick, gross, sugary cereals, and we have that morning together where we're actually together and we're laughing and we're sharing time together. Um, and then we measure the performance, and I just looked at the time, so I'm going to go a little bit quicker. So I'm actually tracking my lagging indicators as well. I'm starting to look at, okay, where am I month over month, and what do I need to do? Where are my goals being met? What's occurring? What occurred during the month that helped or hindered? What changes did I make that, and how did they affect my goal? And is there a major change I can take or a major step I need to take to get closer to help close that gap? So these are my month end reflections. I'm going to share with you a couple real life examples of how I've used this thinking and made a good decision and one that I made a really bad decision. So this is where it gets into the realm of TMI. So in 2022, I was approached by a former schoolmate of mine from my master's program about a new opportunity in an industry that I had never been a part of. My initial gut was no. My boss was half my age. We figured out I was graduating high school and he was born. I didn't like the title. It was an engineering position. I'm not an engineer. I feel it belittles engineers for me to call myself one. Um, I didn't go through all the schooling that a lot of those engineers require. Fear of not working for my mentor for the first time in over 11 years. And my mentor was retiring, and I knew I was the next in line. All of these things were telling me no, 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 no. When I sat and I looked at my Hoshin, I started going through the five most important things. The health. Okay, it was 2 hours closer, 2 hours less of a commute. I commute 3 hours a day. Always, I have for 15 years. This is going to be the first time that it was less. It was going to be 2 hours taken out of my day, meaning I was going to have time to go to the gym. I was going to have more time with my family. Um, it was going, most of the people I had supervised or led in the past were my age, older, or fairly close, within plus or minus 5 years of my age. I was now going into a world of much younger employees, uh, people who were in their 20s, um, much more diverse group as well. Also, social diversity and racial diversity, things that I had never been a part of. But this was going to allow me to mentor a whole group of young people I had never been able to before. Spirituality, it was going to free up time to give me the time that I needed for daily reflection and meditation. And financially, it was a lateral move, but the commute was half the distance with the gas prices in 2022. I'll take that as a promotion, as a raise. I ended up taking that job, and it ended up being an incredible experience. Met some really good people. Now, in hindsight, I'm not with that company now. I did find that it was a very equipment business, and I am very much a more of a a make to order type person versus a make to stock. But that experience was amazing, and the company I work for was amazing. It was nothing wrong with it. It was something that I had to do another reflection and say, this isn't the right place for me. Failure. Prior to that, I had been in a dedicated CI role, and I was asked to take a position within my plant as the business unit manager for a new startup venture we were doing. My gut was no. I had covered for a production supervisor while they tried to find a production supervisor. I knew that short-term goals and results were expected. Um, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, having that experience with the P&L responsibility and the kudos I was getting, which I didn't put in here from everybody, was like, all right. So in Hoshin review, I only went through the first two. I looked at the financial. This was going to blow my 5-year plan out of the water. This was going to absolutely kill my 5-year plan, and it was going to be a win. And professionally, wow, I was going to get some tremendous leadership experience. But I never considered any of the other five, the other three of the five. Physical health, I knew that it was going to require some extreme hours. Um, those extreme hours took toll on my relationship with my family, my friends, my grandchildren. And the one thing you can never get back is time. If anybody has figured that out, please let me know. And I really stopped investing in myself. This position, for the 2 years I was in this position, I was miserable. My wife knows I was miserable. It was a rough time. Um, but again, I hadn't looked at the whole circle of things. So we're down at the end here. I just want to share some lessons I've learned. Um, Summary, what this system does for me. It gives me a clear vision of what I want and what I need to work on. It gives me an understanding of why I did or did not achieve my goals. Makes decision making clearer. Doesn't easier is probably the wrong word. Clearer is probably a much better word. Uh, it gives me the ability to understand if what I'm working on is actually moving my needle, and it's the knowledge of what I need to do. It provides me the knowledge of what I need to do to meet my goals. Some lessons I learned on this. Some people do not need a systemic approach to knowing their Hoshin. I happen to. I've read some really good books. Katie Anderson, in her book, talks with Mr. Yoshino, had a very clear vision from his youth, what he wanted to be and where he wanted to be. I did not have that. Um, Implementing this in my personal life has given me the deep understanding and confidence to implement this within the company I work for. In fact, uh, I'll be doing at the Northeast Lean Conference, I'll be doing a professional version of this in a workshop format. Um, Placing your bets on results while completely ignoring your lean indicators is not a strategy. It is completely a wish. And then not looking at the impact in all areas, 360 degrees, that are important to you can drive and will drive negative consequences. Maybe not every one of them, but it will. Just really quickly, some frequently asked questions. I've done this a couple times. What does it take me to do this? The initial startup, I really don't have a good idea of how long. It developed over the course of probably 3 months to really develop to get to where I could start using it. But in the maintenance plan, it's about 10 minutes of daily Hansei, 15 minutes a week. I look at my planning and what the week brought. 30 minutes a month, I look at what the month looked like, what my end goal, my end results were. And then usually right around the early mid to November, I spend about 4 hours review and planning. So approximately 1% of my time, maybe even a little bit less, is used to do this. The tools and apps I've used, pencil and paper, knowledge of PDCA, dedicated time, probably the most critical. An accountability partner is helpful. Current apps I use, there's one called Habit Now Daily Routine Planner. Love that. It can also do your tasks. I don't do it with tasks. For my reflection is Grid Diary, which is my journal and planner. And then Excel and Google Drive really help me with the A3s. I talked about these three books, Getting the Right Things Done, New Economics, and Shibumi Strategy. Other resources that I review before I go into my planning are Me Incorporated, How to Master the Business of Being You. It's a 12-step program. Um, Harada Method, which was written by the late Norman Bodek with Takashi Harada. It's a very structured way that he's used to develop athletes. In Ikigai, I've recently just gotten into this a little bit, which is really understanding the secrets to lifelong happiness, and it's understanding what you do and putting purpose to what you do. So it's really that planning side for me. Next step for me, November starts my planning sessions. Um, And then I have to start thinking about my 5-year planning cycle be coming up in 2025. So for me, it's really maintenance, minor tweaks, getting ready for 2025. I can't believe I'm saying that, but um, and like I mentioned, sharing a little bit, the Lean New England Lean Summit. Um, I will be speaking, and I've now gained that confidence that didn't have back in 2014 when I sat with my boss and said, "What does all this do for me?" I now have gained that concept, and look at this, a keynote for Friday. I think I know this person, Miss Elizabeth Swan. But on Thursday we have another big time, Mr. Alan Robinson. So some powerful people. There's going to be some really good speakers and workshops at this. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to sharing on business Hoshin. Little information on me for if you're ever wondering, I'm an open networker. I love to talk about stuff. Again, self-lean geek. So I did put my info there. And thank you all for being on board. And is there any questions I can cover?
Yeah, there was one from Jose, and he was curious about how did your wife or your family respond to you using personal Hoshin and practicing kata, or did they also do that?
My wife did not. My wife is interested, intrigued. Um, she has also embraced calling me the lean nerd. Um, but she knows when we're doing things like right now, we're doing some remodels in the house. I'm looking at not only what's it cost, I look at it from different perspectives. Is doing this the right thing for us? Is it going to help our lives? Is it going to help? So she does uh appreciate the fact that I do this. No, she does not practice. But she has been helpful at times. Really someone I can bounce ideas off of, and um she'll work with me. But this has really been a me thing, something that, and I don't force it on her. You can't, it's nothing you can force on somebody, right? I can't force somebody to try this. So, um, yeah, thank you, Jose.
Yeah. Um, and some really nice feedback here. Just people appreciating the presentation, your honesty, your sharing, your personal journey, and congrats. Appreciating your humility and just all this information, which I do too. And a lot of us, I don't, you've uh, been focused on giving us good information, but a lot of us are feeling the timeliness of this, right? And I think I've probably shared this already, but it's time, right? I think it's the end of the fiscal year. It's getting ready for the next, for 2025. It's now is the time to think about where do you want to be? What do you want to accomplish? Who do you want to be? And so this is incredibly helpful. And I know that, as you pointed out, it's simple, but it's hard to, you've got to do the work,
Mhm.
but you've given.
And practice on yourself. I mean, that's how this whole thing really started, is practicing on myself. I knew nothing about how to implement a Hoshin plan. I knew nothing on how to drive that through an organization. And now I'm doing that regularly, and I'm confident at it because I've driven it through the organization of Bob.
Yeah, and as you point out, it's practice, right? And we know that from being in the lean world, as you pointed out, whether it's kata or not, this is all practice, right? That you have to make it
Exactly.
your routine and adapt it to what makes. Okay, so Laura asked, have you noticed if your personal Hoshin improved your work?
This is a good example. So again, just the practice of using the Hoshin and putting the dedication into it, and putting, really understanding challenges that came up and how they impact us has helped me at work, because I'm less apt to um, be that whack-a-mole, that cat in that with the fingers popping up. I'm not working on things just because, oh, they're a problem today. How are they really impacting the metrics? does, in a good example, 5S. Lean guy, you guys, I'm gonna hang me out to dry here. Lean guy who says 5S needs a purpose. It's not just to clean up the area and make it look pretty. It's got to have that purpose. And if we don't have that purpose, I don't want to spend hours helping a group just clean up because we want it, someone in management wants it to look pretty. I want it
Um,
to have a purpose. I want it to be meaningful. And that's how I drive things to the Hoshin now.
um, that's beautiful, Bob, and it's a great note to end on, which is purpose. And I'm so happy you came to the cafe. I knew this would be great, knowing you. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in a few weeks at the Lean Summit. And if anyone else is out there around anywhere near or game to come to Connecticut in September, come, it'll be phenomenal. And more from Bob. All right, guys, thank you all. Thank you, Bob. And
Thank you.
we'll be on the website soon.
Sounds great. Thank you.